The night it happened was colder than any night I can remember. Springfield, Missouri felt quiet, almost frozen, like the whole town was holding its breath.
Before we dive into the story, tell me, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story like this.
I was 13, sitting on the staircase with a blanket around my shoulders. I should have been asleep, but something pulled me out of bed. Something heavy in the air. Something I felt in my chest before I even opened my eyes. I heard soft voices coming from the kitchen. My dad, Todd, and my mom, Ashley. At first, I thought they were arguing, but when I got closer, I realized they were whispering. I stopped halfway down the stairs. The house smelled like cold coffee and rain-soaked jackets from the porch. A small lamp glowed in the corner of the kitchen, casting a warm gold circle on the table. My mom stood at the sink, her hands still wet, her shoulders shaking. She wasn't sobbing. She wasn't angry. She was quiet. Quiet in a way that made my heart twist. Dad sat at the table with a pen in his hand. A small white paper lay in front of him. He wasn't looking at Mom. He wasn't looking at anything. Then he said it, in the calmest voice I ever heard. "She's fragile. She won't make it far in life." For a moment, everything inside me stopped. My breath, my thoughts, even the beating in my chest felt like it paused. Those words, they weren't loud, they weren't meant to hurt, but they sank deep, like they were made just for me. My mom turned around, eyes red and shiny, staring at him like he had dropped something heavy between them. "Don't say that about her," Mom whispered. Her voice was soft but full. "You don't know who she'll be?" Dad didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He just sighed, like he was tired in his bones. "I'm being honest, Ash. She feels things too deeply. She breaks too easily. I don't want her to fall apart out there." I felt my throat close. It was like he had reached into my chest and pulled something out of me without knowing. Fragile. Weak. Unable to make it. The words wrapped around me like cold air. Mom wiped her face, trying to hide her tears. "Don't write that down. She'll see it. You know she looks through things." Right. I leaned forward a little more. Dad wasn't just talking, he was writing. He looked down, clicked the pen, and wrote something quickly on the paper. The sound of the pen scratching the page felt louder than anything else in the room. Mom reached out gently. "Todd, please, don't put that on her." He closed the paper, folded it once, and slid it into the drawer under the table. Not ripped, not thrown away, not erased. Hidden. Like a quiet truth he didn't want to say out loud again. My mom saw him do it, but she didn't stop him. She just turned back to the sink, letting the water run over her hands as tears fell silently down her face. And me? I backed up the stairs slowly, one step at a time, until I reached my room. I sat on my bed, hands shaking, mind racing. That was the night I changed. The night I decided I would work until nothing about me looked fragile again. The night I decided I would prove him wrong, even if it took my whole life. But as I lay there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, something else hit me. He didn't just say those words, he wrote them down. He hid them. And that drawer was still in the kitchen, waiting, holding something about me I wasn't supposed to see. And the thought grew louder and louder in my head until it almost scared me. Why would my dad hide a letter about me? And what exactly did he write inside it? 20 years passed. But sometimes it still feels like I'm that 13-year-old girl, sitting on the stairs, listening to the sound of my life changing. But on the outside, no one would ever guess. At 33, I run one of the fastest growing tech companies on McKinney Avenue in Dallas, Texas. A tall glass building, bright blue windows, and my name on the top floor. Evelyn Parker, CEO. People see success when they look at me. A woman with perfect meetings, perfect numbers, perfect confidence. But inside, I feel like a clock that never stops ticking. Always running, always proving, always working to make sure no one ever calls me fragile again. The morning the call came in, my office was full of sunshine. My assistant, Mia, rushed in while holding her tablet and a cup of green tea. Her voice shook a little. "Evelyn, your mother called 3 times. She said it's urgent." My heart paused. My mom never used that word. Urgent. I sat back in my chair slowly. The office around me felt too bright, too perfect, like a picture frame about to crack. "Did she say anything else?" Mia shook her head. "She just said you need to call her back, right away." I tried to breathe slowly, but my chest was tight, the same tightness I used to get as a kid when I felt too much at once. When the door closed behind Mia, I stared at my phone. My relationship with my parents? Complicated. My mom, Ashley, always loved loudly. My dad, Todd, loved in quiet ways I never understood. Or maybe he didn't love at all. I was still unsure. I dialed my mom's number. She picked up on the first ring. "Evelyn?" Her voice sounded thin, like she'd been thinking for hours before calling. "Mom, what's wrong?" There was a pause, a long one, a pause that made my heart thump harder. "Sweetheart, are you busy?" Busy? My calendar was packed. Calls, investors, meetings, deadlines. But suddenly none of it mattered. "No," I whispered. "What's happening?" She took a deep breath. I could hear the clock ticking behind her. It reminded me of home, of childhood, of nights when silence felt too loud. Then she said it. "Your dad asked if you're coming home soon." My hand tightened around the phone. My dad never asked for me. Not once. In 20 years. Mom continued, her voice slowly breaking. He's not himself lately." I felt something sink in my stomach. "What do you mean?" Another shaky breath. "He sits outside at night. He barely eats. He keeps looking at that old drawer in the kitchen. The same one from, you know." Yes, I knew. The drawer with the letter. The drawer that held the sentence that changed my life. Then she whispered the words that made my world tilt. "Evelyn, something's wrong with your father." I swallowed hard. "Is he sick?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but he keeps asking about you, over and over, like he's trying to fix something he waited too long to fix." The room spun slowly. For the first time in years, I felt like the little girl on the staircase again. Scared, confused, waiting for something she didn't understand. Mom spoke again, softer this time, almost like a plea. "Evelyn, please come home." My heart beat once, hard. Then she added the words that landed like a thunderclap inside me. "Something's wrong. He's not himself." The drive from Dallas to Springfield felt longer than it should. 5 hours. 5 hours of open roads, long stretches of quiet highways, and my thoughts echoing louder than the sound of my car. Every mile I got closer to home, the air felt heavier, like the past was waiting for me.
When the exit sign from Maple Ridge Drive appeared, my chest tightened the same way it used to when I brought home a report card I wasn't sure my parents would be proud of. I turned into the neighborhood slowly. The houses looked smaller. The trees looked older. The streets looked exactly the same, but the feeling? The feeling was different, heavier, like the ground here still remembered every tear, every late-night worry, every quiet moment I tried to forget. My childhood home sat at the corner with the same light blue paint and the same white porch rails. Nothing changed, and yet everything felt new. But then I saw something that made my breath catch. My father, Todd Parker, standing on the porch, waiting. He never waits for anyone. He never stands outside. He never paces. He never shows emotion. But there he was, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense, eyes locked on my car as I pulled into the driveway. My heart thumped hard. For a moment, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the man whose voice shaped my entire life, the man who once whispered the sentence that followed me for 20 years. I stepped out of the car. The air felt cool, too cool. "Hi, Dad," I said quietly. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened just a little. "You came," he said. Something in his voice sounded different. Not strong, not cold, but tired, worn. I nodded. "Yes, I just came to visit." Mom peeked through the screen door, her face full of worry and relief all at once. I walked up the steps slowly. Every step felt like walking into a memory. "You look older," he said. I almost laughed. 20 years will do that." He didn't laugh back. He just looked at me, really looked, like he was searching for something he lost a long time ago. Mom opened the door and pulled me into a soft hug. "You must be tired. Come inside." Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and old wooden floors, the same smell from childhood, the same smell from the night everything changed. Mom talked as she made tea, filling the silence with warmth, asking about work, about my drive. But my father, he didn't move from the doorway. He didn't speak. He just watched me, and each time our eyes met, I saw something I had never seen in him before. Fear. Not anger, not disappointment, fear. When I finished my tea, he finally stepped forward. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "can we talk later?" I blinked. Talk? My father never talks. Not about feelings, not about the past, not about anything deep. He looked down at his hands, as if choosing his words one by one. "Yes," he said softly. "Tonight. I need to talk to you, alone." A cold wave rolled down my spine. My mom froze at the sink, her shoulders tightening. My father looked up at me again, and the expression in his eyes, fear, regret, urgency, made my heartbeat quicken. I swallowed. "About what, Dad?" I asked. He shifted, the porch light from outside brushing his face through the window. Then he whispered, almost like he was afraid someone else in the house might hear, "Evelyn, it's important. See you tonight." I never thought I would stand in this kitchen again. Not like this. The same old yellow light hung above us, soft and warm, but everything inside me felt tight. My father sat at the wooden table, his hands shaking a little, and for the first time in my life, he looked small. Not weak, just human, like a man carrying quiet storms inside him. I stood by the counter, unable to sit, unable to breathe right. The last time we had spoken more than 5 minutes was 2 years ago, and now he wanted to talk. Tonight. Urgent. When he finally opened his mouth, his voice came out low. "Evelyn, I wasn't a good father." I felt my whole body freeze. Not because the words surprised me, but because of the way he said them, slow, heavy, as if each one cost him something. I didn't answer. I didn't even blink.
He rubbed his hands together, staring at the table instead of me. I was strict. Too strict. I pushed too hard. I said things I should never have said. I know that. My heart began to pound, a deep, sharp sound in my ears. I knew exactly where he was going. I knew the memory he was about to touch. The cold night, the whisper, the sentence that followed me everywhere for years. She's fragile. She won't make it far in life. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice calm. Dad, why bring this up now? He lifted his eyes slowly, and for a moment, I saw a kind of sadness I had never seen on his face. A sadness that didn't come from anger or stress or work. This one felt old and personal. Because I remember that night, he said. All of it. Every word, every sound. I stepped back without meaning to. No one had ever mentioned it again. Not him, not my mother, not me. He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his voice almost a whisper. I knew you were there, Evelyn. My breath caught. He continued. You were standing by the hallway. I saw your shadow. I heard you cry. I wanted to come to you, but I didn't. He shut his eyes tight as if that moment still hurt him. You didn't deserve to hear those words, he said, and I didn't say them because they were true. The lights hummed softly above us. The room felt too quiet. Then why? I asked, my voice cracked without permission. Why say something like that about your own daughter? He opened his eyes again, slower this time. The air felt heavier now, thick, almost pressing on my chest. There were reasons. Reasons your mother never told you. I felt the floor shift inside my mind. Reasons? What reasons? Why had Mother never said anything? My father looked toward the small drawer by the fridge, the same drawer that once hid a letter when I was 13. The same drawer I never dared to open again. He reached for the drawer handle, but stopped halfway, his fingers shaking. Evelyn, he said quietly, there is something about your childhood you don't know. My breath trembled, my palms went cold. What don't I know? I whispered. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Then he lifted his hand and pointed toward the drawer. It starts in there. I stared at the drawer, the same wooden drawer that once held a secret I was too afraid to read. And just as I stepped closer, just one small step, my father said words that made my heart stop. Before you open it, you need to know the truth about who was after you. I walked down the quiet hallway of our house, the same hallway where I once stood as a child, hiding in the dark, listening to words that shaped me. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like every shadow held a secret, waiting for me to uncover it. My father stayed in the kitchen while I moved toward his old office. The door was half open, just like it always used to be when he worked late at night. The room smelled the same, old books, paper, and a little bit of dust. Nothing had changed, yet everything inside me felt new, sharp, alert. I turned on the lamp. A warm yellow circle of light spread across the room, and my eyes landed on his wooden desk, big, heavy, and full of years. He had pointed at the drawer earlier, but when I tried the handle, it didn't move. It was locked. My heart thumped once, hard. A locked drawer inside my childhood home felt like a door to the past, and I wasn't sure what I would find on the other side. I crouched down and checked underneath the desk, and there it was, taped under the wood, a small key, dusty, almost hidden. He kept it there all these years. With shaky hands, I picked it up. The key slid into the drawer with a soft click, and the lock turned. I pulled it open slowly. Inside, I saw things I did not expect. The first item was an old report card from 5th grade, edges slightly bent. He kept it. All A's except one B. And right beside it, another report card. And another. Every score, every teacher comments, all saved. Carefully stacked next to them were my award certificates, spelling bee ribbons, honor roll papers, things I thought no one noticed, especially him. My throat tightened. Then I saw something that made me sit on the floor. It was a small sketch, one I drew when I was 8. A picture of our family standing together, holding hands, smiling. I wrote "My home" at the bottom with pink crayon. He kept this too. I touched the paper gently, feeling my younger self in every crooked line. Behind the sketch were newspaper clippings, my company's launch, interviews, awards, images of me speaking on stages. He kept those as well. All of them. It was like looking at a secret timeline of my life, seen through his eyes. And then, at the very bottom of the drawer, was a sealed envelope with my name written in his handwriting. Evelyn. My chest rose and fell too fast as I picked it up. The paper felt old, but the seal was still tight. I opened the envelope carefully, afraid it would tear. Inside was a letter, just one page. The handwriting was uneven, like he tried many times before writing this version. My eyes moved to the first line. I'm proud of you. I always have been. I just didn't know how to show it. My breath broke. A warm tear slid down my cheek before I could stop it. I kept reading, slowly, line by line, letting each word sink into the places inside me that had stayed empty for years. But when I reached the bottom, I froze. The letter didn't end. The last line was ripped out. A small, jagged tear ran across the bottom of the page as if someone had pulled it off with force. My heartbeat stumbled. Why would he tear the ending? What did the missing line say? Who removed it? And why? I lifted the torn letter closer to the lamp, and just as I did, I heard my father's footsteps behind me. He stood in the doorway, breathing heavily, his eyes fixed on the page in my hands. That last line, he said quietly, his voice shaking, that's the part someone never wanted you to see. My mother sat on the edge of the couch, hands pressed together, eyes shining in a way I hadn't seen in years. The living room felt too quiet, like the walls themselves were waiting. I held the torn letter on my lap, the missing line burning a hole in my mind. Mom looked at it, then looked at me. "Evelyn," she whispered, "there are things you never knew about your father." Her voice was soft, but it made the room feel heavier. I nodded. "Then tell me, Mom." She exhaled slowly, like she had been holding her breath for years. "Your father didn't grow up in a happy home," she said. "He was raised in a place where no one hugged, no one talked, no one said anything kind. His own father was strict and very cold. Every day." I watched her carefully. I never heard her talk about his childhood before. "Your dad learned very young that feelings were unsafe," she continued. "He learned to stay quiet, to stay calm, to never ask for help. He brought that same way of living into this family, not because he wanted to hurt us, but because he didn't know another way." I lowered my eyes. A small part of me felt a pull of sympathy. Another part still felt confused, and the torn edge of the letter kept flashing in my mind. Mom kept going. "When you were born, he was scared," she said. Her voice shook a little. "He thought he would break you.
He thought he would repeat what he grew up with. I stared at her. My father, scared? The man who spoke little, showed little, reacted to nothing? She nodded, seeing the question on my face. He thought being distant would protect you, she said. He thought if he didn't get too close, he wouldn't pass down the pain he carried. That distance was love, in his mind. My throat tightened. I remembered birthdays where he stood at the corner of the room, school events where he clapped once and went quiet, long rides home where we said nothing at all. Distance was not love to me. Distance felt like emptiness. But to him, that was the only safe thing he knew. Mom reached for my hand. When he said those words, "She's fragile. She won't make it far in life," he wasn't trying to hurt you, she said gently. He was afraid. Afraid you were too soft for a world he thought was too hard. Afraid you would grow like him. Afraid he couldn't help you. Her words fell into me like slow raindrops, soft but full. I closed my eyes, letting the room settle around me. But still, something wasn't adding up. If all he felt was fear, why rip the last line of the letter? Why hide it? Why talk about reasons Mom never told me? I opened my eyes and looked at her. "That's not the full story, is it?" I asked quietly. She blinked fast, almost too fast. Then she looked down at her hands. Her fingers touched each other nervously, twisting a ring around and around. She wasn't just sad. She was scared. She swallowed hard. "The night he said those words," she whispered, "something else happened. Something I have never told you." My heart thumped in my chest. She looked up at me with eyes full of years she never shared. "The truth isn't only about him," she said. "It's about someone else, too." Her voice dropped lower, almost shaking. "Evelyn, the real reason he said those words wasn't fear." She leaned closer, her next words slow and heavy. "It was because of who came to our house that night." She glanced toward the hallway, toward the office, the drawer, the missing line, as if the memory still lived there. Then she said, "Someone you don't remember, but someone who changed everything."
My mother took a long breath, the kind that comes from a place she never wanted to revisit. The living room felt tighter, smaller, like the walls were pulling in around us. I could hear the soft hum of the old fridge, the clock ticking on the wall, the faint wind outside pushing against the windows. But inside me, everything was still. "Evelyn," she began softly again, "you were only 13. You couldn't understand what your father was carrying that week." I leaned forward, palms warm, heart slow and heavy. "What was he carrying?" I asked. She closed her eyes before saying it. "He lost his job." The sentence floated between us like a bird that didn't know where to land. I just stared at her. Mom nodded, her voice trembling. "He didn't tell you. He didn't tell anyone. He wanted to protect us from worry. But inside, he felt like he had failed. Failed himself, failed you, failed all of us." I felt something shift inside my chest, like a door creaking open. Failed us? All these years I thought he didn't believe in me, but maybe he didn't believe in himself. Mom kept talking, her voice softer now. "That whole week, he came home late, pretending everything was normal. He didn't sleep, he didn't eat much. He kept saying the house was too quiet, even when it wasn't." I pictured him then, sitting alone in the garage, that old yellow bulb above his head, staring at the floor and thinking the world was falling apart. On the night you overheard him, he had just come back from a long walk. He was thinking about how he would tell me, how he would tell you. He thought he wasn't strong enough to hold this family together. His eyes glistened again. He believed you were fragile. Not because you were, but because he felt fragile. He was scared he would pass that fear to you. So he said those words out of pain, not truth. My heart sank and lifted at the same time. It didn't excuse the hurt, but it finally made sense. Mom reached for my hand again, squeezing it gently. He was hurting so much inside, Eve, and he didn't want you to see him fall apart. He hated the idea of you seeing him fail. For the first time, I felt something new, a slow, deep ache for the man who never said much, but carried too much. Mom wiped her cheek. If he could have spoken better, if he had known the right words, he would have said something very different that night. I looked down at the letter in my lap, the torn edge like a wound that never closed. What happened after? I asked. What made that night so important that he remembers it 20 years later? Mom hesitated. Her fingers twisted around each other again. That night, after he said those words, she whispered, he thought it was the beginning of the end. My chest tightened. The end of what? Mom swallowed. The end of our family. I froze. What do you mean? She hesitated longer this time, her eyes shifting toward the hallway, the one that led to their old bedroom, and the office drawer with the missing line. Then she whispered it. I truly thought he might leave us. My breath stopped. Mom kept going, her voice so low I had to lean in to hear it. That night, after he said those words, he thought it was the beginning of the end. I stepped outside before my mother could say anything else. The air in the house felt too heavy, too full, too tight around my chest. The backyard was exactly how I remembered it. The old wooden fence leaning to one side, the tall tree still standing strong in the corner, the small patch of grass where I used to sit with my sketchbook. But tonight, everything looked different. Like the past was hiding in every corner, waiting for me. When I reached the middle of the yard, I stopped. My legs felt weak, my breath felt short. And then, I finally broke. The words came out of me like a storm that had been locked inside for 20 years. That one sentence, I whispered to the dark, that one sentence built my whole life. I covered my face with my hands as the truth pushed through my chest. I worked every day, not to fail, but to prove him wrong. I became strong because he called me fragile. I became a CEO because he thought I couldn't do anything. I built everything, every success, every award, every late night, because of him. My voice cracked. I didn't build a life, I built armor. I felt the tears roll down my cheeks, slow, warm, steady. It was the kind of crying you don't control, the kind that rises from deep inside, where old memories sleep. I sank down on the cool grass, hugging my knees. The sky above me looked wide and quiet, like it didn't want to interrupt. For a moment, all I heard was my own breath, in and out, soft and shaky. Then something made me look up. Through the kitchen window, I saw him, my dad. He stood there, hands resting on the counter, shoulders stiff, eyes locked on me. He wasn't angry, he wasn't confused, he wasn't blank like he used to be. He looked scared, not of me, but of coming near me. He stood there like a man who wanted to walk outside, but didn't trust himself to say the right words. Like someone who feared that every step he took might make things worse. For a second, our eyes met through the window. My dad, the man who shaped me without even knowing, the man who carried his fear like it was stone, the man who watched his own daughter cry and still couldn't move. I looked away first, because I didn't know if I wanted him close or far. I wiped my face, trying to catch my breath. My phone buzzed in my pocket, loud in the quiet night. I pulled it out with shaky hands. It was a message from Mia, my assistant. Mia, Emergency board meeting. Investors want answers. They're questioning your leadership. Call me now. My heart jumped. Questioning my leadership? My company? My empire? No. No, not now. Not tonight. I stared at the screen as the messages kept coming in. Mia, Evelyn, this is serious. They think something is wrong. They want to know where you are. Please respond. A cold wave ran through me. My empire, the life I built, the identity I created, the success I fought for was shaking at the same time as my family. I closed my eyes, head spinning. I had come home to face my past. I didn't expect my future to start cracking too. Behind me, the kitchen light flickered. Dad was still there, watching. I felt my phone buzz again. I looked down. A new message popped up, this time from an unknown number. It read, "We know why you left Dallas, and we need to talk." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't go inside right away. The house felt too full, too tight, too heavy with things we never said. So I slowly walked to the front porch, wiping the last of my tears. The wooden steps creaked softly under my feet, just like they did when I was 13. The night air was cool, brushing against my skin. The street was quiet, only the soft hum of a street lamp across Maple Ridge Drive. I sat down. After a moment, the front door opened behind me. I felt him before I saw him. It was my dad, Todd. He stepped out slowly, like he was scared the porch might disappear under him. He stood beside the door for a second, unsure. Then, quietly, he took a seat at the far end of the porch, leaving space between us. Space we'd been living in for 20 years. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. Too full. I looked at him. I saw lines I didn't remember. I saw tired eyes. I saw hands that looked like they had held too much worry. Then I took a deep breath. "Dad," I said softly, "I need to say something." He nodded once, slow, like he was bracing for something. So I opened the door inside me, the door I had locked since I was 13. "I carried your words," I said, "my whole life, every day, every school test, every job interview, every meeting, every big moment." My voice shook, but I didn't stop. I worked hard not because I wanted to win, but because I wanted to prove you wrong. He blinked fast, breathing hard through his nose. "I wanted you to look at me just once and say, 'I was wrong about you.' I wanted you to see me. I wanted you to be proud of me, but you never said anything, and I didn't know why." He swallowed hard, eyes shining, but not dropping a single tear. "So I built a life that no one could question. I built something strong, something big. But every step, every success, every victory came from a wound I didn't create." My dad looked down at his hands. I wasn't done. "When you said I was fragile," I continued, "it entered me like a seed, and I grew a whole forest around it, just to protect myself." He let out a soft sound, half breath, half pain. I looked straight ahead, afraid he might break if I looked at him. I kept going anyway. "And tonight, after everything, I still don't understand why you said it. I need you to tell me the truth." The porch felt still. Even the night air paused. My father didn't speak right away. He sat there, shoulders tight, jaw shaking, breath unsteady. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fingers locked together. And finally, he spoke. His voice was soft, low, almost shy. "Evelyn, my daughter, you weren't weak." He took a trembling breath. "You were never weak." I turned to look at him. His eyes were full of something I had never seen on his face before, fear and love mixed together. He said quietly, "I didn't think you were fragile. I thought you were too strong." I froze. Too strong? He kept going, voice shaking. Too bright, too sharp, too good. I was scared you'd outgrow me. Scared you'd see how small I felt. Scared you'd leave. My heart stopped. He wasn't calling me weak. He was calling himself unworthy. I stared at him, breath trapped in my chest. And then he whispered the words that twisted everything inside me. "Evelyn, I didn't think you wouldn't make it far. I was scared you'd make it so far, you wouldn't need me." My entire world shifted, but before I could say a word, my phone buzzed loudly in my hand. A new message from the same unknown number as before. It read, "Ask him about the missing page." My heart dropped. Missing page? What page? I slowly turned to my dad. He looked at me with fear in his eyes, like he already knew exactly what the message meant.
I went back to the drawer. I don't even know what pulled me there. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was that little voice inside me that kept saying, "There is more. There is something you didn't see." So I pulled the drawer open again. Nothing new. Same scattered papers. Same old smell of dust and old memories. Same tiny scratch on the side of the wood where my father once hit it too hard while searching for a missing receipt. But something inside me whispered, "Look deeper." So I pushed my hand farther in. My fingers brushed against something soft, crumpled, cold. My heart jumped. I reached deeper, almost up to my elbow, and pulled out a small wrinkled page that had slipped behind the drawer. It looked like it had been hiding there for years. I held it with both hands, slowly opening it like it was something holy, something forbidden, something that waited a long time to be found. The handwriting hit me first. My dad's. Bold strokes, sharp turns, strong letters with tiny soft spots. My chest tightened. I began to read. "You will be more than me." My breath caught. I blinked hard, almost thinking I read it wrong, but the words stayed. They didn't change. "You will be more than me." Then the next line, "I'm scared I won't deserve to be your father." My body froze. Everything inside me went still. Those were not the words of a man who thought I was fragile. Those were the words of a man who feared he wasn't enough. I felt something warm rise in my chest, a heavy warmth that slowly climbed up my throat. I placed my palm on the page, like I could feel him through it, like the paper was alive with his breath. For a moment, time didn't move. The wind in the backyard didn't move. Even my heartbeat felt slow. I always believed he doubted me. I always believed he saw me as someone small, someone who needed help, someone who would break. But here, hidden in an old drawer, in a crumpled page he never finished, was the truth. He wasn't doubting me. He was doubting himself. I sat on the floor, hugging the paper close to my chest. My eyes stung. My throat hummed. My hands shook. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something sweet inside the pain. My dad believed in me more than I ever knew. I traced one line on the bottom of the page. The ink had blurred a little, just a small spot, a tiny round stain. At first, I thought it was just old water. But when I looked again, no, it wasn't water. It was from a tear. A single tear. His tear. My dad, who never cried in front of anyone, who always hid his soft side, who always acted strong and steady, he cried while writing this. That thought hit me so hard, I had to close my eyes. A tear from him about me. Slowly, I lifted the page to the light. The tear mark shimmered, and my chest ached.
I took a deep breath, feeling 20 years of tension unwind in slow, painful threads. For the first time, I allowed myself to admit it out loud. I've been scared. Of myself. My voice trembled. I whispered the confession like it was a secret meant only for me. I have been running from a ghost, a version of myself I didn't even like. And just as the weight of that truth settled in, I heard it. A sudden, sharp thud from the hallway. I froze. "Dad?" I called softly, my heart hammering. There was silence. Then the sound again, this time a low groan, followed by a cough that was weak, urgent, and unsteady. I ran into the hallway. There he was. My dad collapsed on the floor, one hand clutching his chest, the other bracing against the wall. His face was pale, and his breathing was shallow. Apparently, he was suffering from a panic attack. My stomach dropped. My shielded life, my business battles, my carefully controlled persona, none of it mattered right now. There was only him, struggling on the ground, and me, frozen in panic. I knelt beside him, my hands shaking as I touched his arm. "Dad, talk to me. Breathe, please." He looked up at me, eyes wide, a mixture of fear and something softer, vulnerability I had never allowed myself to see. I'm okay," he gasped, but his voice wavered, betraying him. I shook my head. "No, you're not okay, Dad. Don't lie. Not to me." For the first time in my life, I felt the roles reverse. He, the stoic, silent father, and me, the one who could no longer hide from the truth. Life was fragile, even for those who appeared unbreakable. I felt tears sting my eyes. Not for myself this time, but for him. For every year he spent pretending, for every moment we both misunderstood each other, and for the realization that fear had shaped both our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. And then, just as I braced to help him up, my phone buzzed sharply in my pocket. I glanced at it, and the screen made my heart stop. It was another message from the board. "Evelyn, it's urgent. Your company is at risk. Investors are demanding answers immediately." The world I had built, the empire I had fought to protect, was shaking at the very moment my personal life had hit its breaking point. I swallowed hard, my hands still on my father's arm. My mind raced. Could I save him and save everything I had worked for? I had thought the enemy was outside, in the boardrooms, in my father's words. But now I realized the true challenge was within me. Could I rise above fear, for both our sakes? My dad's eyes locked with mine, and he whispered, weakly but clearly, "Eve, honey, please don't leave me here alone." A few minutes later, Mom arrived with the ambulance, and Dad was taken to the hospital. The fluorescent lights of Mercy Hospital buzzed softly, casting a pale glow over the room. I sat in the stiff visitor chair beside my dad's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The monitors beeped quietly, marking each heartbeat like a metronome in the otherwise silent space. Dad's hand was weak in mine, yet the warmth radiated more than I expected. For so long, I had carried the weight of our unspoken history, imagining him as a cold, distant figure who never cared. And yet, here he was, fragile and human, and for the first time, I saw him without the walls he had built around himself. I've been selfish, Eve, he began, his voice low but clear. Not just as a father, but as a man. I let my fears control me, let them dictate how I treated the people I loved most. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. There it was, again, the tenderness I had longed for, the admission I had dreamed he might one day give. I followed you, he continued, his eyes flicking toward the window before settling back on me. Not in the way you think, not to judge or control. I watched, quietly, every interview you gave, every article, every award, every time they praised you, I smiled, alone in this house. I saved clippings, news stories, everything. I was your biggest fan, Evelyn, always. The tears I had held back for years finally slipped down my cheeks. My father, the man I had believed to be emotionally absent, had been silently cheering me on. All those years of striving, of working harder than anyone could imagine, it wasn't just for me. He had believed in me too, even if he didn't know how to show it. I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. Dad, why didn't you ever tell me? I asked. His hand shook slightly in mine. I didn't know how. I thought if I said something, I'd ruin what you'd built. I thought my words might make you question yourself. So I stayed quiet. And I regret it every day. The hospital room felt smaller somehow, the space between us shrinking with every word. The guilt and fear that had clung to both of us for decades seemed to dissipate slightly, replaced with a fragile, tentative connection I had never known we could have. I let myself smile, a real smile, the kind I hadn't given myself permission for in years. You could have told me, Dad, but I understand now. He nodded, a faint smile breaking across his pale face. There's something else. Something I never told anyone. Not your mother. Not anyone. My heart skipped. The air seemed heavier, charged with the weight of a secret. I leaned closer, instinctively holding his hand tighter. What is it? His eyes searched mine, and I could see the struggle, the fear of exposing something that had haunted him for decades. Finally, he whispered, his voice trembling. It's about your grandfather. Something you need to know about him. Something that explains everything.
When I was your age, your grandfather? He told me the same words I said to you, Dad continued, voice tight with memory. You won't make it. You're too weak. I heard it every day. I felt it in every glance, every sigh, every silent judgment. I carried that fear into how I tried to be a father. The words hit me like a punch. All the anger, all the pain I had blamed him for, now felt different, layered, complicated. My father hadn't spoken them out of cruelty. He had spoken them out of the wounds someone else had placed on him. I thought I was protecting you, he admitted, his eyes glossy. I thought if I said nothing, if I held back, maybe you'd grow stronger. Maybe you'd escape the kind of life I had. But all I did was repeat the cycle. I sat in stunned silence, the weight of revelation settling over me like a thick fog. Everything suddenly clicked.
The perfectionism, the drive, the nights I stayed up working on projects and interviews, always feeling like I had to prove I was enough. It wasn't just me. It was a legacy I had inherited, a fear I had absorbed without knowing. I never realized how much I mirrored my father's fears instead of facing my own, I whispered. The tears I had fought for years now pressed at my eyelids. And now I see it in myself. This drive, this need to prove I'm strong, it's part of the same chain. Dad squeezed my hand, weak but grounding. It doesn't have to be that way, Evelyn. You can break it. You can do what I couldn't. You can end this cycle with your generation. You've already done it in so many ways. But this is the most important. I stared at him, understanding dawning, my chest tightening with the mix of grief and possibility. The anger I had carried for decades softened into something I couldn't name yet, a resolution, a clarity, a fierce hope. This is what you're telling me? That all this pain, all these years of feeling fragile, it's not mine to carry alone? He nodded, a weak but certain affirmation. It's yours to understand, to change, to rise above, and I believe you can. For the first time, I felt the weight of generational expectations and fears lift slightly, not gone, not forgotten, but lift enough that I could see a path forward. My father, frail and vulnerable, had just handed me something more valuable than money or advice, the truth. I swallowed hard, heart racing, mind spinning with the possibilities of what I could do with this knowledge. My life had always been a battle to prove myself, to survive, to succeed. Now it could be a battle to heal and to finally thrive, without fear.
My dad was finally discharged from the hospital and back on his feet again, and there was no pretense, no silence between us this time. "Evelyn," he began, voice low, careful, "I know I can't take back the words I said or the years I stayed quiet, but I need you to hear me say it now. I'm very sorry. I really am." I stared at him, my chest tight. Every muscle in my body remembered the 13-year-old me curled up on my bed hearing his voice. Every achievement I'd fought for, every sleepless night, every promotion, every presentation, it all flashed before me. And yet, beneath it all, I saw the man who had tried, in his own flawed way, to protect me. I started and stopped. My throat tightened, my eyes stung. I wasn't sure what came next. Forgiveness felt like a word too heavy, too light, too complicated all at once. I had spent decades building walls, constructing armor, crafting a life designed to prove him wrong, and maybe, secretly, to prove myself right. Dad's gaze didn't waver. "Evelyn, I can't change the past, but I can be here now. I can be better. I need you to know that, and I hope, one day, maybe, you can forgive me." I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around my coffee cup. There was so much I wanted to say, so many years of anger, of distance, of doubt. But in this moment, something shifted. The weight of resentment began to feel unnecessary. The fear of fragility that had once defined me, crushing, constant, felt smaller somehow. "I don't even know if forgiveness is the right word," I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm listening, and I see you. Not just the father who failed sometimes, but the man who loved me, even when he didn't know how to show it." Dad exhaled, a sound that was almost a relief. His eyes glistened, and I realized he was holding back tears I had never imagined him shedding for me, for us. We sat in silence, letting the words linger, letting the truth fill the spaces that had once been empty. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was honest. For the first time, our relationship didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt human.
I reached across the table and placed my hand on his. "I forgive you, Dad," I said softly, not because everything was all right, but because I need peace, and I want us to be better. His shoulders fell with relief. He covered my hand with his other one, and for the first time in my life, I didn't pull away. His grip was warm, safe, human. Then something even more surprising happened. Mom walked into the kitchen. She had been standing nearby, listening quietly. Her eyes were bright and wet, but her face carried a soft smile. She stepped closer, touched my shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you for giving us another chance." I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until it slipped into my heart like sunlight. She sat beside me, and suddenly it wasn't just father and daughter, it was a family, learning each other again, one breath at a time. We talked for hours. We laughed a little, we cried a little, we filled in the empty spaces we had ignored for too long. And somewhere in between our stories and our small smiles, something beautiful happened. The generational wall began to fall. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't carrying a heavy story anymore. I wasn't running from my past. I wasn't fighting ghosts or shadows. I was rewriting my family story with my own hands. When it was finally time to leave, Dad walked me to my car. The sky was a soft pink, the kind that makes the world feel gentle and calm. He opened the car door for me like he used to long ago, then stopped, his hand resting on the frame. "I'm proud of you, Eve," he said quietly. "More than you know." I smiled, a full smile, a healed smile. As I drove back to Dallas, the road felt different, lighter, brighter. The wind felt like a soft hug against my face. I placed my hand over my heart and whispered, "I didn't just make it, I became more than enough." My spirit felt free, like a closed door had finally opened. And I knew that the success waiting for me back home wasn't just business anymore. It was purpose. It was growth. It was everything I had fought for.